Hey yo. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Standard 81 podcast. My name is Sincere, and I'm glad to be with you this lovely morning going into afternoon. We got another incredible show for you, but before we get started in all of this, let's go ahead and take a quick 30-second break, and I'll be back with you in a moment here in 3, 2, And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. First things first, if you do not know who I am, my name is Sincere, and this is the Standard 81 podcast. And what we are often here to talk about is things from a Christian perspective, whether it be relationships or things that are going on in the world. I primarily concentrate on relationships and stuff like that, but I usually tend to talk about a ton of diversity of different things. And the topic we are going to talk about today is called We're Selfish. We're Selfish, or You Are Selfish. Titled it both, but I put We're Selfish on the actual title screen. But before I get into it any further, go ahead and hit that like button for me and subscribe if you haven't already. That helps the channel grow and get out to more people, as well as share this with somebody that you think actually needs it. And give me a comment down below and let me know what you think about the content. Anyways, let's continue on. And there are a lot of problems in today's world. There's the bad economy. There's not being able to find work like you would like to. But the one thing that totally stands out more so than anything is the difficulty in being able to find someone to share and spend life with. And while there are a myriad of things you can say and many different issues and ideas you can talk about and exploring that, I think the primary focus of it boils down to this one point. We're selfish. None of us really wants to give of ourselves long enough to really see the value in how things go. The principle of giving and receiving is one of those principles that everybody wants to live by, but they forget the part of giving. Everybody wants to receive up front, and then give afterwards. And when you have a bunch of people that want to receive before they give, ultimately you get nothing. And the whole thing I want to explore is why. Why is it that a lot of us nowadays want to get before we give? And many people would say, hey, Sincere, it's about reciprocal action. It's about, but that still doesn't explain why people want to get before they give. And especially me being a Christian, because the Bible tells me that for God to love the world that he gave, meaning that before anything happened, before stuff went down, he gave of himself and he gave of what he had before he was able to acquire anything. Now, having said that, it's a lot easier to come on these platforms and say these things rather than to live them out. And I know that personally. But the thing is, if we want a different outcome, we've got to do something different in order to receive that outcome. We have tried it our way at this point, and it's just led us down the wrong road. But before I go any further into my 3 points that I would like to talk about, let's go ahead and watch a couple of clips off of YouTube, a couple of videos off of YouTube that I think will further help expand my point, and then we'll go from there. This first one is by Dr. Miles Monroe, the late Dr. Miles Monroe. I love him to death, and I think he is an incredible minister. He was an incredible minister and an incredible speaker. Those who haven't had the chance to see Dr. Miles Monroe, I would suggest you go see him on his Clips channel over on his website, and tune into what he's got to say, because he's got to say a lot. He's got a lot of words of wisdom. But without any further ado, let's tune into Dr. Miles Monroe. Here we go.
If you love one another, then the Constitution will work. But if this book of promises doesn't work without your decision, not just what God does that makes this book work, it's also what you do. The reason why I can't afford a grudge, I won't talk about hate, just grudge. I can't afford it because I can't live one day without having my prayers answered. And I ain't gonna let you mess up my prayer life. Anybody with me? This is why the Bible says, if you find out that someone has ought against you, you haven't even done nothing, but if you find that they have it against you, say, go to them. Why? I don't want you to mess up my prayer life. And he says, forgive them. It didn't say they will forgive you. That ain't the problem. Make sure your culture is right. Look at this.
Okay, hold on.
Verse.
Before we go any further into that, let me state a quick point. Let me state a quick point here before we go any further into that. And here it is. We oftentimes say that it is better to give than receive. Well, forgiveness is the same way. We can't have the idea in our mind that if I forgive this person, it's going to be only justified that they forgive me. Remember, and this is why I say we're selfish. Remember, forgiveness is about you. It's not about the other person. I'll say that one more time. Forgiveness is about you, not the other person. So if the only reason you're forgiving a person is you're hoping to get something in return, this is why your interactions with people, as far as saying I'm sorry and stuff like that, is not working. You're hoping to obtain something for yourself from a person that may care less. Forgiveness is for you. All right, let's continue.
Chapter 13, verse 9. Everybody read. The commandments: do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not covet, and whatever other commandments there may be. Now watch Paul now. Paul said, look, I don't care what you obey. People always get excited about all these little simple, this deep stuff, little intricate things. He said, look, I don't care what you're trying to obey. He said, the big law is this one. Love your neighbor as yourself. This sums up all the others. If you follow love, we never have to think about you breaking any other law. That's what he's saying.
So important.
You cannot say you love people and then covet what they have.
Very important.
If a believer is committing adultery, that means they sleep with someone else's spouse. There's no love in them. I can't say I love you and sleep with your wife. Look at that. He said the law said don't commit adultery. He says, but You even ain't got to think about that. If you just sum it up, just love your neighbor as yourself. If you love neighbor as yourself, you don't you don't want to commit adultery with your spouse. The community of faith, the kingdom, is a kingdom of love.
Okay, hold on. Before we go into this any further, once again, I want to stop and bring some side notes to this. A lot of people say they're searching for and they're looking for love, right? But people will do some of the most heinous things and say, it's not that I don't love you, it's just I'm not in love with you. Well, we just heard there, and I'm strictly coming from a Christian perspective. Love your neighbor as yourself. And Dr. Miles Monroe said right there, if you love your neighbor as yourself, all the rest of those things, all those commandments and values and stuff like that, you don't even have to worry about that, because if you indeed love yourself as much as you say you do, especially in this world of all self-love and blah, 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 and you can't love your neighbor as yourself, then there is a problem. There is a significant problem. A significant problem. And you got to ask yourself, do you love yourself as much as you say you do? Or do you like the idea of something? Which is a whole nother thing. Let's go into, let's continue on.
How can I love you and then steal from you? How can I love you and then be jealous of what you have? When love stops, every other sin kicks in.
That's so good.
So the ultimate ministry of the kingdom culture is love. Look at the next one. He says, love is the fulfillment of the law. Now, Paul was a Pharisee. Paul was a graduate of the top theological school in his day. It was called the School of Gamaliel. Paul was his number one student. Paul was a chief Pharisee. The Pharisees had 669 laws that they had to obey to be a faithful Jew. Paul was the highest graduate. That statement was Paul canceling his whole education. He said, look, if you do this one, you don't need to even think about the 669. Okay, how about this one? Thou shalt not lie. Well, if I love you, how am I going to lie to you? Thou shalt not steal. If I love you, how am I going to thief from you? Don't commit fornication. If I love you, how am I going to sleep with you and I ain't got no covenant? Let me tell you something. If you are fornicating right now, let me tell you something. That person does not love you. Listen to me. Look at my face. If you are sleeping with someone and you are not married to them, I don't care. That's a liar you're sleeping with. They're lying. Because if they love you, they wouldn't cause you to break the law of God. And I mean that. People say, listen, if you open your leg to him, he don't love you. He making you break the law of God. How can he say he love you and he making you sin? We live in lies, fool ourselves. If you love me, you won't let me.
That's so profound right there.
Be quiet on that point.
If you love me, you won't let me.
See, love does no harm. Read it in the Bible, 1 Corinthians. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't destroy. You hit a woman, man. What are you doing? You told told her you love her. Vice versa, you hit the man, beat him up. Oh yeah, so women beat men up in this country. I had to counsel a few of them. I mean, women whoop a guy. I say, brother. But she was big. How could you hit your husband and then you say you love him? How could you commit incest on your niece? You abuse your own daughter, man. Talk to me. What kind of love is this? The same love? In this one command, all the commandments are fulfilled. So, put your hand up. Say, Lord, give me that love now.
All right. So that is clip 1. That is clip 1. I don't know why all of a sudden my hang on. Ooh, looks even worse. Okay. Yeah. Guys, I'm having some trouble with my as the late great Kevin Samuels would say, build it as you fly. Let's see the touch up. All right. So that is clip 1. That is clip 1. And I think clip 1 as Christians really is profound, and it explains a lot of why we need to do what we do, and why we live the way we live, and why the world is the way it is in this particular state. But moving on, I'm trying to get decent lighting. My lighting here is a little terrible. Yeah. Okay. I think we got it now. Let me just move a little closer. Yeah, that's a little better. Forgive me, everybody. I'm readjusting to a new setup, but yeah. Let's move into this next clip, right? And this next clip I have here is from Jordan Peterson, right? Jordan Peterson, the great Jordan Peterson. And it's only a 30-second clip, and we're going to watch it now.
Exactly. Do you mean you in the next 5 minutes, or the next 10 minutes, or the next day, or the next week, or month, or year, or 5 years? I mean, you're an old, no one more narcissistic. There's a technical problem with being selfish. Let's say you're only acting in accordance with what's good for you. Which you do you mean exactly? Do you mean you in the next 5 minutes, or the next 10 minutes, or the next day, or the next week, or month, or year, or 5 years? I mean, you're an old person, not yet, but you will be. And so if you take yourself seriously as an entity that exists collectively across time, then you're faced with the problem of the collective instantly, even if you're highly selfish. So I don't think that there is a selfishness that's logically juxtaposed against the interest of the collective. There's a technical problem with being selfish.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we watched both of those clips. And what can we pull from both of those clips? And the principle I can pull from both of those clips is this: the more selfish you are, the more you are inclined to do things that are against your nature or against your long-term goals, right? The more you're going to have trouble with connecting with people, the more you're going to have trouble in getting around your issues, the more you're going to have trouble in this life, period. Now, how am I relating today? I'm relating this all in congruence with relations to people, not just specifically in relationships, but yeah, so much so, right? Now, Jordan Peterson said in that particular clip, he said, even if you're inherently selfish, if you're looking for immediate gratification, you can self-sabotage who you're becoming and trying to fulfill that immediate need. Which brings me to my first point, which is expectation versus reality. Now, you can have a certain expectation, but what is the reality behind that expectation? Are you looking to gain something that is unrealistic, or as social media would call it, highly delusional? Or are you looking to I should really lift this slide up just a little bit. Anyways, I'll fix that later. Are you looking to really subscribe yourself into a place where you can really succeed? And for most of us, we want what we want when we want it. But then when the reality of it kicks in and you don't look 10, 5, 20, however many years or however many months or however many weeks down the road at what you want, we often come back and say, oh, I can't believe it turned out this way. And why is this so important? Well, it seems as though in every other avenue of life, we can make a smart and educated decision about things. But when it comes to personal relationships and mating and dating, we tend to think irrational. We can think 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line when it comes to money. We can think 10, 20, 30, 40 years when it comes to education and job pursuits. Even if the market is hard and even if the economy is bad, we'll reevaluate the way we are doing things and adjust ourselves according to the reality with our expectations measured in how things are going according to our process. But for some reason, and this is not just specifically ladies, this is men alike, we want to measure the immediate thing of who we see and what it is we're going after based on what it is we have now, knowing that subconsciously, knowing that a person can change, a person is going to grow, and a person is going to evolve over the course of time. But because we're selfish, we don't tend to think about that. We think about, I want it now, and this is the way I want it. And then ultimately, when things don't happen the way we expect them to, we want to blame it on everybody but ourselves. And this is why I say we're selfish. We're not willing to give ourselves enough time to think about what is the expectation that we are looking for 10, 20 years down the line. We want everything now. But what is the reality showing? We all know what it means to have delayed gratification. Think about it. Even if you don't know verbatim the definition of it, we all have to do delayed gratification. You don't go to from middle school to high school right away. You don't go from high school to college right away. You don't get your degree after just a year of college. Heck, even those degree programs that are online that say you can get your degree within a year require you to have some type of background that coincides with the degree or the program you want to get into in order for you to get that degree quicker. But for a lot of us, our expectation is one thing and our reality is another. And when you start kicking back and saying, what is the reality of what I'm looking at, then the picture becomes clear. The picture becomes a lot more clear. Because now you can gauge things based upon where you're at versus where you're looking to go, per se. My second point, we only want to give to our benefit. Now, in other realms of life, that is a good thing. But in the realm of trying to find somebody and trying to mate and date, you can't always wait for the other person to do something, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be waiting forever. You can't wait for a person to, excuse me. You can't wait for a person to have good communication skills in order for you to start communicating. You can't wait for a person to start doing certain things for you before you begin doing. This is the problem that I see across the board with both men and women. We have these expectations of a person, and we ourselves don't want to give anything unless it somehow benefits us. This is what's leaving us lonely and single. Guys are like, I want this and I want that, and I want this and I want that, but unwilling to give of anything. Well, unwilling to give of themselves of anything. So then you shouldn't expect anything. And ladies are the same way. They want all this princess treatment and all this other stuff, but they don't want to give of themselves nothing. Or what they are willing to give is typically just being a kind person and an adult, quite frankly. If you are, and this is why I say I speak from a Christian perspective. So if you're not a Christian, use this to how it use this for however you may think it applies. But the Bible says this: give and it will be given back to you. The first component of that is giving. Doesn't mean you have to give everything of yourself all at once. This is the thing that we don't take into account. We like to think of things in these overwhelming grand scale. But God himself doesn't dole out to us everything all at once, even when it comes to blessings. Because he gives us what we need, what we know we can handle, what he knows we can handle at that point. If he gave us everything all at once, it would overwhelm us and eventually destroy us. And it should be the same way in your pursuit of a relationship. Yes, I need to give of myself, but I give of myself in accordance to the measure in which I feel that person can handle. I've always said, put all your cards upon the table, but you don't have to put all your cards on the table facing up. Put them bad boys on the deck on the table and face down. And then as you go through, turn a card over. Aren't some of these the principles of poker? And a lot of y'all like poker. I don't see how y'all play a game that is so highly logical and so well thought out, and you can't apply the same principles to your relationships. Some of you play chess. Both people can see the pieces on the board and see how you're moving them, but nobody knows the thought in your mind. They don't know your next move. All they can do is look at what you have done and try to anticipate what they think you're going to do next. You don't have to show all your hand out at once. Put your cards on the table and then flip them over one at a time to reveal what you have. But when you hold them tight against your chest and you never put any cards out there, all they're going to do is say you're bluffing until you actually reveal your hand. And unfortunately, unlike poker, unlike poker, in a relationship, you can't afford to play all your cards to your chest until the end. Because when they call your bluff, you're going to have to either show all your cards or be willing to walk away from the table. Because nobody's going to stick around for forever to figure it out. My third point in closing, it's all about me. When you make this whole thing about yourself and what you can benefit and what your expectations are and what and how you want things to go, you are bound to be alone. Guaranteed, you are bound to be alone when you make it all about me. People want something in return for what it is they give. For God so loved the world, he gave, that whoever would believe in him would not perish but have everlasting life. Meaning, if you take the free gift God gives, you can have eternal life. But if you don't, you're going to suffer. The same principle applies to the relationship. If somebody is giving to you, then what is it you're giving to them? And I hate hearing people say, oh, I give this, and this. Well, what if the money is gone? What if the high educated degrees and all this stuff means nothing in the place you find yourself in? What if the house and the home stop meaning as much as they do? What if all the materialism that we focus so highly on stops meaning as much as we thought it does? What do we do then? For a lot of us, we don't even have the answer because we are so concerned about fulfilling our own cause and fulfilling our own nature that we forget to think about anybody else. We like to think we're virtuous, but we're really not. Even the whole single parent thing is not really virtuous. We trying to sit there and figure out who can take care of the child better instead of thinking about the child. What does the child need? What should we be giving of ourselves? Can we stop for a second thinking about what it is we're going to get from having the child and think about what the child needs, our inherent selfishness is going to be the thing that demolishes our whole society. Am I saying that there's not a time to think about self? Absolutely not. I would never tell you that. Because in order for you to in order for you to be able to uh, love others, you've got to first love yourself. But the type of love that we show out in this world and we have been displaying out in this world looks more like selfishness and entitlement rather than self-love. It's manufactured, it's plastered on, it's a big things, it's big decoration, it's high displays. It's basically all we're doing to each other is peacocking. If you have seen a male peacock, how their feathers plumage, and if you know anything about this, and only reason I'm saying this is not for the whole male and female dynamic. I'm saying this as it relates to us and our selfishness. They show off all their feathers in hopes of attracting the opposite sex to them, and it's oftentimes what we do when we acquire and do all these things. We're trying to show other people how beautiful we are, how educated we are, how valid we are, how valuable we are, how whatever it is, we're thinking about us. We're not thinking about how it affects other people or what it is we would need from that other person until we get in the situation. And then we wonder why it's not working. Kevin Samuels used to say this, and he used to say this in relations to women thinking about men. What does that other person want? But I'm going to say that I'm going to keep that same comment, and I'll say, why don't all of us start thinking about what the other person wants? Let me say that one more time. Why don't we all begin to think about what the other person wants versus we ourselves? You'll find that honestly, a lot of times it'll do you a lot more good than it does harm. Because now you can begin to really filter in on the things that are important instead of the things that gratify your human nature. In conclusion, what is the best way for us to move forward and begin to move away from selfishness? Well, number one, and you know I'm always say this, we need to come in contact with our Lord and Savior. And if you don't know him, you need to start knowing him today. And it's easy. Just ask him into your heart, begin to read your word, find yourself in place with a good church that's going to preach the word how it's supposed to be preached, and go from there. Secondly, we need to stop thinking of ourselves all the time when it comes to relationships and relating to other people. Yes, is your story important? Absolutely. But this is the one thing you must know. Everybody has a story. And nobody's story is less important than the others. And last but not least, start loving our neighbors as ourselves. So if you don't first love yourself, figure out who you are. And then once you figure out who you are, then you can genuinely love people. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Anyways, guys, check out the Standard 81 podcast over there on TikTok. Got plenty of videos up there. As well as check out my Instagram at Sincere the Artist. Once again, give me that thumbs up down there at the bottom. Subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate it 100%. Once again, it helps the channel grow and get out to more people. Comment. Type second watch in the comments for those of you who are watching it after the stream has gone live or after this podcast has gone live. I appreciate that so much. And share this with somebody who you think needs to hear the message. I hope all this made sense. And I hope it really challenges you to grow outside of what you would think. Until next time, be blessed and take care of yourself. Peace.